Hi, Catherine.
Hi, how are you?
I am doing well. Thank you for being a part of the listening room here at the Coaching Collective Online.
Well, thank you for having me. I feel so honored to be here with you today. Thank you.
Thank you for spending your time and sharing your story with all of us.
Always happy to share it. If my story can help one person, I feel like I've done my work. I've done, what I was sent here to do.
That's so nice to hear. Now, I see you describe yourself as a heart attack survivor. I don't know if you feel like sharing a little bit about that.
Yeah, I just turned 45 at the time, about 2 months past my 45th birthday, and I had a heart attack. It was the summer of 20, so we were right in the middle of COVID, which I know we all remember and know where we were. And I started having left arm pain, chest pain, all the kind of normal symptoms that I think we've all heard through just, awareness for heart attacks. And I didn't know where I'd come from. I didn't have any family history. And lo and behold, I was definitely having a heart attack. And I really just wanted to go to bed early and wake up feeling better, which I think is something we women tend to do because we're always taking care of other people. And so we tend to put ourselves last and think maybe it's just about a good night's rest. But that wasn't the case. I was having a heart attack. So yes, it will be, it'll 6 years this summer.
My gosh, I just couldn't even imagine.
It was crazy. Yes. And on top of COVID, that just made it extra.
Yeah. Yes.
Yeah.
So how do you feel like that experience changed you in any way to be doing what you're doing now?
Yes, I say that experience absolutely got me very clear about time, that it really put a light on the clock, so to speak. I think it's easy, or for me, I should say, I think there's going to be this long runway of time. I'll get to it when things are less busy or whatever the fill in the blank is. I think we all as women have those, when the kids leave or when the job. And what it did was it woke me up to time, and that the time is now. And so that was the gift, the silver lining that I got to when I got to the other side of the proverbial mountain, so to speak, where I could say, oh, okay, it's time for me to do this thing that's on my heart. And the time is now. So yes, very much that was the message for me.
And what are you doing right now? What are all of the activities or, projects that you're working on?
So glad you asked. Well, I am about to launch my own podcast called The Unproper Southern Girl. And the reason around that name is I grew up in the South, which I very much love, and I'm grateful that that's where I grew up. But the idea is, or for me, is to take the very best that I received by growing up in the South and kind of leave the parts that didn't serve me. And those parts are being the good girl, speak when you're spoken to, acting a certain way, being polite, worried about everybody's feelings. I don't think you had to grow up in the South to have that same cultural overlay. I think a lot of us as women were taught that. I always say, men, I believe, are invited to just take up space in the new room they enter. Yes. We women are like, we're actually taught to take up the littlest space. And so the idea of the podcast and the name, because I use a lot of humor in my own life. And so the podcast, I wanted it deep, meaningful, but funny. So that's kind of the name, was to be a little sassy, which is very me. I'm having candid conversations like I am with you now with women and some men, I will say, who work with women about stories, narratives, ideas that matter, that are shaping culture, that are impacting the world, that I believe should be amplified and should be heard. And they're frankly women that I think are badasses, that I think the world should hear more of, and that we should be able to have a place for safe conversations, candid conversations, to say the things that we might be thinking but are afraid to say. So I'm working on the podcast with that, and then building an online community with that, like many of us are in the world that we live in. And then thirdly, one of my love languages is gathering people. I love to gather people. I love to connect people. You give me a theme and I'm like on crack cocaine. So I do salons. I'm working on a summit for next year. I do a series of dinners to bring women together, not so much for networking, but rather connecting. So those are kind of the buckets I'm in at the moment. And that's all, we're pre-launch right now, which is exciting.
That's great to hear. It is very exciting.
Yes.
When you mentioned that some women or people have certain, or are afraid to have certain conversations about certain topics, What have you found so far to be one of those topics that seem to bring up a lot of fear in people?
Well, I think people not feeling good enough or feeling like they fit in. I mean, I'm just going to give you a list. I think that there's a whole cultural picture around midlife. I think that we as a culture tend to celebrate youth and the excitement of youth. And I loved being in my 20s, but I can tell you hands down, I don't want to go be 20 again. The wisdom, the freedom. I did cross the 50-yard line, this past year. I do think that crossing 50, I don't know if it's the number or it's the mindset, but I do think that being able to share what's on your heart without feeling like you're being judged is so freeing. So to your question, menopause is another another conversation that I think is historically there's been shame around it. Another conversation, I don't have biological children. I have two amazing stepchildren. I get emotional when I think about them because they're great humans. But I think there's a lot of shame around, oh, you didn't have a baby? Like, what's wrong with you? And I have several powerhouse women in my life who do not have earthly babies, but they're fur baby mothers, but they're also launching businesses and other things. They're having other babies, so to speak. So that's another conversation. I also think just anything around the messy, whatever the messy was, whatever in your life that wasn't perfect or wasn't pretty. I think people feel uncomfortable in those conversations, and yet they're powerful conversations to have. So those are the kinds of things. There's really no limits for me if someone's willing to go there.
Yes. And the gatherings that you are putting together for women to have real conversations, and it looks, I saw your posts and the pictures are beautiful, and it looks like everybody's having a really nice time, an authentic time. And I don't know if you wanted to talk a little bit.
Yeah, I do. I call them one table, many voices. And the whole idea is that what goes on at one table, I think, can be very powerful. Again, and a nod to my Southern roots. My parents entertained a lot, and we were always gathering. It was often around meals, very traditional kind of way that we lived. And so I always understood the power of coming to the table. Mm-hmm. My parents always invited people. So at any given Sunday, we could have a kind of random stranger at our table, or neighbor. And so my parents really modeled for me that there's room for everybody. There's a seat for everybody, no matter the color of their skin or their religion or anything like that. And so I think for me, the power of coming together at a table, sharing a meal, even when you have two people who come to the table with opposing ideas or values, I think a lot can get worked out at a table if there's decorum and respect, and an understanding that we're there to find the common ground. Mm-hmm. And I do think that common ground is much easier to access when you come and sit at a table together. So these dinners I'm very clear, they're not networking, but they're rather connecting. And I love to celebrate powerful women in our community that are making it a better place. So I've had anybody from the wellness space to the art space to the designers. I try to choose people in different industries so that they can kind of see how what each other are doing and to celebrate each other. And if they feel so inclined, I've had women, become friends and go off and collaborate together. That's always the hope, but certainly never forced. But that's really what those dinners do. And it's a way for me to celebrate them. So they come, I get to love on them, take care of them, and give them an opportunity to meet their peers who I think are worthy of being to know, like themselves.
Sounds like a very supportive space.
It's very supportive, no competition. As I said, no one's there talking over. I think the last one we had, there were definitely laughter, but there were definitely a lot of tears. We got really deep, which was really important. I always let it go where it's supposed to go, but this last dinner got really deep quickly. And I think what it did was it just gave the gal to the next permission to go there. And there was some really delicate, but really powerful things that were shared. And I know I went home with a really full heart, and I believe that the other ladies did too.
That's really good to hear that it's a space where people can be vulnerable, and you basically establish trust in these gatherings. And that I don't think a lot of people have many spaces like that to go to. So that's great that you're putting this together with such intent and authentic thought in it.
Yes. And I love a beautiful table. I learned that from my mother. So the interior designer in me, that was my former career. I think that I see the world through beauty. And so for me, a tablescape is just another opportunity to celebrate and include beauty. And so that's also a fun part of the evening.
I was going to ask, what brought you into, I know the health crisis, but explain a little bit more about what you used to do.
I was an interior designer. I went to school for design, and I really was kind of torn between two pathways. I wanted wanted to either be an interior designer or I wanted to be a social worker. And probably because my mother was a nurse, and I think there's something around a nurse's heart. I think nurses carry a certain disposition of caretaking. And so I saw a mother who was always tending to people. And I think in my own way, felt like a social worker would be a version of that. But I also loved beauty. I would get up at night and rearrange my bedroom, and my parents would come in the morning and they're like, oh, your bed was over there now, so I was always around. But I ultimately chose to go to interior design school and start my own business. So I did that for my 20s and 30s, did commercial and residential interior design. But I will tell you that I was an unofficial psychologist. So I think the love of social working, because when you work with clients and couples, sometimes over 2 and 3 years when they build a house, you get very close to their marriage and you start to learn a lot, and you do kind of become therapist, social worker at times in the midst of designing a home. But that was the first half of my life.
Do you miss any parts of that? Or I guess you're still putting that into your creative.
Yeah, on my terms. I'll tell you what I don't miss. And I did have beautiful clients, don't get me wrong, but I don't miss working for the client. I love to create beauty for me and for my family and the way that I see it without the permission of asking for a client. And so for me, I believe I had, almost 20 years of interior design, and I wouldn't trade it, but I don't miss it. I recognize that the next chapter was waiting for me and the next evolution, and being an interior designer wasn't the case for me. So I think I really started to lean into how can I now help people in a different capacity, and the heart attack really was the thing that pointed the needle to that. Like, okay, this is where we're headed. And I didn't really know. I just followed an inner gut.
I was going to ask, what gave you some courage or bravery to make such a big change?
I knew I wanted to do something, and I'd spent a lot of years, even as a designer. I've always been a student. I've been an avid reader. I've gone to workshops, seminars. I was always that girl. I think I was at Tony Robbins when I was like 25, if that kind of gives you the picture.
Yeah.
And just about any other workshop I could get my hands on or I could afford. So I've always been a student of learning and wanted to be a better person and wanted to evolve and then impart that wisdom to other people. I've also had a life where I end up in places where I end up in these deep conversations with strangers, and we end up sharing this wisdom and exchange, and they're sharing their heart and I'm sharing wisdom. And so I've always been that person, and I've always felt like I was leading my way here, but I didn't know what it looked like. And it wasn't until after the heart attack, to your point, I got the courage from the heart attack, because I thought, well, the opposite of like living from the heart attack is death. So it doesn't get much scarier than that. So me creating something and putting it out in the world, if I've been through that health crisis, I can surely figure this out. So that, and I think my why became so big. I felt like I had a second chance, and I felt like, who am I to be so afraid of how this is going to come out that I'm not going to actually do it? And that's really what drove me and continues to drive me. I have hard days. I have days where I think, who is going to listen to any of this? Why am I doing it? And then back to my why, I think about my heart attack, and I think, no, I'm on the path that I believe was made for me. And I just take the next step, the next right step.
That's great. I know even if you just help one person, right, you make a huge difference. But I know that you are somebody that people love to watch and listen to. So that's just great to have somebody, a role model such as yourself, out here speaking.
Thank you. Thank you. Well, and I also think that if we have a voice and we feel like we're supposed to say it, we should use it and just trust that those that are supposed to hear it will hear it, and to kind of get out of our own way and let the message go where it's supposed to, versus make a decision to not put the message out and then you rob the very person that was supposed to hear it what they're supposed to hear.
Yes. What does 2026 look like for you?
Well, launching my podcast in the next couple months, and all the build out, I'm sure you know this well, all the build out that goes around launching and the back end. I can tell you that I've been working on this for, my gosh, year and a half or so. And there's a lot to, newsletters and blogs and socials, and we're putting up a shop my page and all of that. So it's been a lot of tedious work. I guess it's a little bit like building a house. You've got to start from the foundation and go all the way up. And without a strong foundation, the house might fall. So I'm finishing my building and then really just moving into launching. So I see the rest of we're kind of entering the third quarter here, second quarter. It's all about launch. It's all about me and interviewing people, working on some collaborations with some other people, really just taking this brand and this voice and just putting it out into the world. That really is my mission. So I can't tell you exactly what the rest of 226 is going to look like. We'll have to check back in December, but I know where I'm headed. But I'm also, there's a lot of space for me to, see where I'm directed, because I've had some really miraculous things happen so far. So you want to leave room for some magic.
That's very true. You're a very strong voice. And it's just been a pleasure to meet you and then have this time. And you took the time to be a part of the listening room and share your story. What do you think a lot of women or what do you want women to walk away with from hearing your story?
Ooh, okay. A few things. I want every woman to realize and know they matter. I interviewed somebody about a month ago, and I remember when I called her, she said, I don't have a story. I said, you do have a story. You do.
Oh, yeah.
When she said yes, and when she came, I can tell you by the end of our recording, she was in tears, I was in tears, and I think the gift for her was she realized how powerful her story was. But I think when we walk in our own lives every day, we're just ourselves, and we forget that our lived experience could be life-changing for somebody else. The moments that were our hardest, or maybe seemed like nothing was really going on, actually can inform other people. So I want every woman to know they have a story and that it deserves to be told. I also want women to know, maybe because I'm in midlife, I really do believe life just gets better and better. I think the second half will be more enriching than the first, because we have all of this collected wisdom, this lived wisdom. And I frankly cannot wait. Like, I'm looking at 50 plus and going, it's just going to get better and better. And I want women to be hopeful for the next half. I think you've got a lot of women empty nesting, and so roles are changing. People feel like maybe their purpose, especially mothers, I think, can feel like, well, my kids are launched, my husband's still doing his thing, what about me? And I think it's an exciting time to really go, okay, it's my time. It's now my time to dig in, figure out what it is I want to do. It doesn't have to be big and huge and loud. It's just got to be purposeful and passionate and personal. So I just want people to think you're just getting started. And also find your people. Really find your people. I think that if I could give one message, there is nothing as powerful than a group of women who will circle around you and cheer you on in your greatest victory and be there for your lowest low. But my God, be there on your best days. I think that's a great testament to real friendship, is when somebody has a giant victory, who is there clapping?
Who's celebrating and helping, and so excited for them that they've achieved or accomplished whatever.
Yes. I think it's easy to sit with people. I shouldn't say it's easy, but to sit with people in their lowest point, I think feels natural to a lot of people because it's a caretaking role. And I think as women, we tend to take on that role. Yeah. But the celebration things can trigger in another person something they haven't done. And it's a real truth test to see if your friend really can stand with you in your greatest moment. So that's something I would so invite people to. And it's not too late. I think another thing is people think, I don't meet the moms anymore at school drop off, that those days are over. It's hard to meet friends when you get old. No, I do completely believe if you are open, the universe, whatever word you want to use, will drop the most incredible people into your life. Yes. When you least expect it, just be open.
Right. And be aligned. I feel for me, I have met so many great role models and powerful voices. And I would have never expected to have such great, authentic friends that I'm just meeting now in my life. I think if you're aligned and you conduct yourself with integrity every day and you stay on that path, you can't help but meet the same type of people.
So true. And you, to add to that, because that's brilliant, is that you then want to be the friend you're looking for. You want to be the friend cheering her on and celebrating her greatest moments. But yes, all of that. Just be aligned and stay open.
Yes, I agree. You talk a lot about being present and appreciating the moment. Do you feel that's part of why somebody like yourself and many of the people that you're surrounding yourself with find their lives to be more enriching right now, because they have endured so much, gained the wisdom, made the mistakes, but learned from it, grown from it, and have learned how to live and be grateful for the present moment that they're in?
Yes, I do. And I think I wasn't always that girl. I'm a big planner. I think which really served me in my career. When you are planning and building a home, home, planning is a great skill, right? You're always looking ahead, you're lining things up. But I recognize that I was always living my life, look what's next. And I do think you need a heavy dose of planning if you do want to achieve your dreams. Yeah. However, I do think you need to be rooted in where you are and present in where you are. That will just make the future planning better. But when we miss the presence for the future, we aren't really living our lives. We're living a future version of ourselves that we never get to because we're always stepping ahead. So that's something I've had to work on. I mean, definitely the heart attack, I will tell you, kind of road stopped me and really sat me down, symbolically. And so I'm much better at it. The practice has gotten easier, but life can get all ramped up again. And sometimes I have to have a little chat with Catherine and say, okay, that's all over there. We've got people working on that, but this is what's here. And that often has to do with your relationships that are right in front of you, where I know there's times where I think, oh, I know they know I love them, but have I called them lately? Right. Have I had coffee? I'm seeing somebody later in the week. I have, a busy day like we all do. And she asked me to meet for coffee, and it wasn't a great day, but I went back and I thought, you know what? I can move a couple things. Yes. So it's still a practice for me. It's still a practice to prioritize the present and what's being offered in the present.
Do you feel comfortable sharing what may have caused you to have the heart attack?
Yeah, I'd love to talk about my heart attack. So I'm going to tell you what it is, and then I'll explain kind of what it was. So I had what I learned is under the umbrella of heart disease, we'll call it. There's a giant umbrella, and there's everything from heart attacks, different kinds, to different heart disease, which we hear about, AFib, and different, all kinds of things. So I had something called a spontaneous coronary artery dissection, SCAD. Just think SCAD is the short version. And basically it's the dissection or the tearing of my artery wall. The kind of heart attack I had, what I understand it to be, is the anomaly of heart attacks, meaning it's kind of the outlier of heart attacks. It's not the lifestyle heart attack, which let's talk about that. That's the overweight, smoking, drinking, eating red meat, salt, not moving, right? Which sadly is a lot of people in our country struggle with that. And that's a heart attack with exercise and behavior modification, and medicine can maybe be corrected or prevented. So mine is not that. Mine is what they have come to understand is that it happens mostly to women in their late 40s, early 50s who are healthy and fit. So go figure. So we are the anomaly. We are not the risk. We don't have family history. Yeah. We don't have the risk factors. So what does that mean? That means they don't know a lot about it. They are starting to piece together some patterns of women who have had it, going, what things do they share? Two groups have kind of come up. Women within a week of having childbirth. So imagine being this young, beautiful 20-some-year-old woman, and a week later, I know you're a mom, you have a heart attack. The other one is a woman who, if you think about late 40s, early 50s, where are they? Midlife. What happens at midlife? Menopause. So one of my cardiologists who studies this particular heart attack quite a bit, she's recognizing what's also happening at childbirth is a lot of hormones are happening, So I think there's I thought that there could be a hormone component, but again, it's not nearly as well studied as the major heart attack, the one we know where the guy comes into the ER with the big belly and having chest pain. So they don't know. And because I was basically doing all the things you're supposed to be doing, and I had a heart attack. So that's the extra scary part of my heart attack, is that supposedly I was eating well, I was working out, I was doing all the things I was supposed to do, and I still had a heart attack. So they don't totally know. I am on medication for the rest of my life. I've got great doctors. I've tried to learn as much as I can about it. And if it ever were to happen again, I know what to do. Call 911.
Well, yes, I am so glad that you're healthy and here with everybody today. I was going to ask, do you do anything different health-wise because of that?
A couple tweaks. So yes, I'd like to say this. You always use an opportunity to talk about this. So when I was in the hospital, I spent a week in cardiac ICU. And when I had a male doctor who was discharging me on the last day, and he came in and I said, is there anything I can't do? Like, I was still in a blur. I was still in a state of shock.
Mm-hmm.
And he said, well, in about a week, you can go back to everything you've been doing, every activity. And I was very active, biking, mountain biking, tennis, boxing, you name it.
Mm-hmm.
And I said, everything? And he said, everything. Well, that didn't feel right. I just thought that's kind of crazy. So we found an amazing doctor that specializes in the kind of heart attack that I have, who happens to be a woman, who I think really, being a woman, understands the woman's body. So I met with her 3 days later, and we had a 2-hour consultation. And she said, no, quite a bit of those things you should not be doing because they build pressure in the chest. So she gave me basically a amended version of workout, but I still can do a ton. They just don't want me putting pressure. So yoga is not great for me because you're holding, if you think about what a plank is, you're holding pressure for a minute, 90 seconds. They just don't know what that does to my artery wall. So there's some things that have been taken off the list of working out, but I still can do a tremendous amount. I already ate healthy. I would say the only thing that's different is I am on medication that is basically life-saving for my arteries because they don't know why they tore. But I can live with that. Once we got the cocktail of medication worked out, that took a couple months. I just kind of do it in my sleep, take the pills at night, don't think about it. And that's really the only thing that's changed. I will tell you, I'm much more in touch with my body now. I did go to cardiac rehab after my heart attack, which felt like kindergarten because I would get on the treadmill and we'd go like, the slow, and I'd want to go faster. She's like, no, we're just trying to retrain your body that it's okay to move again without fear. But she said to me on the day that I graduated from cardiac rehab, she said, Catherine, you know what to do. If you're having symptoms, just stop, take a breath, check in. If there's a couple things happening, like the arm, the chest, the jaw, you know what to do. You call 911. So I left there feeling empowered that I knew what I needed to do, and I take my daily medications, and that's really how my life is now. But there's an awareness, not a fear, but there's an awareness of what I need to do if I feel like something's happening.
I think so many people need to pay attention to their bodies.
Yes.
They become more aware and in tune with their bodies so they can recognize if something is starting or, they need to change something in their life in some way. I know your story has probably helped so many people out there.
Well, I also say this because I think it's important, is that we have to advocate for ourselves, especially as women. Two sides to that. I think it's easy for us to say, well, I'll get to the doctor next month. Mm-hmm. And that's not good because it could be the difference between now and a month could be life-changing, as we know. Mm-hmm. The other thing is when a person who enters an ER like myself and says, I think I'm having a heart attack, I don't look like the average person having a heart attack. So it's easy to be like, oh, are you having anxiety? Maybe you've had a long day. And women and men's health has not been equal through the years. I learned quite a bit after my heart attack. Women were not even brought into clinical trials until like the 1970s. So cardiology has historically kind of been a man's situation. Mm-hmm. And if you think about, we have something very different. I mean, our hormones and all the things. So how could they not test us? But we're catching up. And so after I had my heart attack, my cardiologist asked me if there were some women that were looking to speak to another heart attack survivor, if I would be willing. I said yes. 3 of the women that I spoke to, they went to 2 or 3 different ERs the night they ended up having a heart attack, sent away being told, go home, rest. You must be having anxiety. And thank goodness the person that they were with or themselves advocated, demanded that they be seen. Mm-hmm. And I say, no man going into a ER saying, I'm having chest pain, are they going to look at him and say, are you having a hard day? Are you dealing with a lot of emotions today? So there's still like a gender bias that we have to work through. So when I talk about my heart attack, I always tell women, if you think something is off, it doesn't matter. Advocate for yourself. Go to a different hospital if you have to. Just get in front of somebody that will listen to you because you know your body. But also listen to your body and don't just think you're tired, which I actually was going to go back to sleep that night and take an aspirin. And my now husband said, no, we're going to the ER. And my doctor said it would have, that would have been a very different outcome had I not come in.
What a great husband.
Yes. Well, we had just met. So those were early. He had a best of early past. Yes. Yeah.
Oh my gosh. Well, that's great advice. It really is. Thank you, Catherine, for sharing your story with us. And is there anything else that you want to share or talk about professionally or personally?
Well, I'm a giant champion for women. I want to just give you a kudos. We started connecting online, and you are a beautiful example of women supporting women. And the fact that we did connect online, so it does work. I like to tell people when it happens, it's a beautiful thing. And then we had a call, and here we are today. today. So you really are an example of what's possible when we see somebody doing something and want to lean in. I'm a big advocate about leaning in. Pull up a chair and lean in. We need to support one another in all of our various journeys. I think it is so important. And I think that there's a lot of craziness in the world right now. We know that. And it might feel hopeless and helpless, but I always believe you can start where you are, and you start with the people directly around you. And I think today's a testament of that. And that's what I would leave people with, is support the people around you that are doing things, that are being courageous enough to put things out into the world, whether it's being a great, school, they're room moms anymore. I don't even know if that's a thing, but like that, or
I don't know
what you're doing. But I just think we need to support each other and champion each other. I think it's very important. And I would love for you to just, follow me on my journey and see where this all goes.
I definitely am following you, and I encourage everybody to follow you. Where can people find you?
So my Instagram is Catherine_Tuton, Tuton. And my website, I believe, will be going live in about 2 weeks, and it will just be CatherineTuton.com. There'll be a lot of information there, a lot of goodies, and there'll be information about my upcoming salons and dinners and all the in-person events that I'll be doing and hosting over the next year, and then blogs and thoughts and all that. But right now it's Instagram, and I'm just grateful to connect with people and connect with someone like you who is equally in the world making a better place through your platform and your voice. So I'm grateful that we are paths connected and that we're here, and you need to come visit me in Arizona and come to one of my dinners.
I am already making plans. I look forward to it.
And I've got a great tribe of women here who are equally doing beautiful things that you should be among.
That's great. Thank you. Thank you again for being here. I hope you have a wonderful rest of your week and evening, and we'll be talking to you soon. Thank you.
Yes. Take care. Thank you. Thanks for having me.